All right, so here's lesson 5.4, parallel and perpendicular lines. What this one's going to be about, and I think you probably know some of this from past courses. Parallel lines are lines that are straight beside each other. They'll never touch, right? If you continued on both those lines forever, they would never intersect. Perpendicular lines are lines that cross perfectly at 90 degrees. So this line is perfectly 90 degrees to that line. So that's what we're talking about here for parallel and perpendicular. Number one says determine the slope of the following pairs of line segments using slope is equal to rise over run. So just counting like we normally would. Figure out what the slope of those things were. And then do you notice any patterns? I'm going to let you guys do that. I'm probably going to tell you the answer here in a minute anyway. Yeah, I'm probably going to actually have to. Parallel lines are always going to have the same slope. So the slope of this thing, even though it's off to the right, is going to be the same slope as that one because they're parallel. Same with that. The slope of that one is going to be the same as the slope of that one, which makes sense, right? They're never going to touch. They have the same slope. Okay, so now this one, determine the slope of the following pairs of perpendicular line segments using that one. So if we do that, this one gets a bit more interesting. So let's do the first one, this one here. So if I look at AB, this is going to be -2 down and 4 to the right there, or 4 that way. So I've got AB, so the slope of this thing would be -2 over 4. So actually I'm going to rewrite that as -1 over 2 as a smaller fraction. So that's that one. And if I look at the slope of the other one, that's going to be 4 for my rise, 2 for my run, 2 this way, right? So this is going to be 4 over 2. And again, I'm going to write that as a smaller fraction. That's just going to be 2 over 1. Could have also wrote it as 2, but it's going to be interesting for what we're going to do here. Part B says multiply the slope of the pairs of perpendicular line segments. So I'm going to multiply this slope by this slope. And what we get, you got -1 over 2 times 2 over 1. You can kind of see what's going to happen here. We've got -1 times 2. That's going to be -2 over 2 times 1 in the bottom. That's going to be +2. So I've got -2 over 2. Well, if I simplify that fraction, that's -1 over 1, or just -1. And this is going to be a common theme for any line that's perpendicular, is if you have any two lines that are truly perpendicular and you take their slopes, it's always going to equal -1. We say that they're negative reciprocals they're of each other, so negative reciprocals. So reciprocal is pretty much just flipping the two, and then the negative is the negative part of it, so they're negative reciprocals. Yeah, that's kind of the main idea here. So you guys can go ahead and do those. I just want you to be able to know those two things. So parallel lines have the same slope. Perpendicular lines, if you multiply their slopes together, we get -1. So those are two ways of knowing whether lines are perpendicular or parallel. You guys are going to use those two things to figure out the rest of these questions here. So determine if the lines are parallel or perpendicular or neither. So can you simplify this fraction to be this, to be the same thing? Let's see, what goes into 8 and into 20 if we simplified this one? Let's try just dividing by 2 first if you're not sure. Let's do 4. Let's divide both by 4. So if I divide the top by 4 and the bottom by 4, 8 divided by 4 on the top would be 2. On the bottom, 20 divided by 4 is 5. So this fraction is the same as this, right? So these slopes are exactly the same, so they would be parallel. Okay, so you're going to do that, or it might be perpendicular if you can multiply the two of them together to get -1. If neither of those happen, then they're not parallel or perpendicular. So go through and do those. Same thing. We can do these to figure out whether if they're the same slope, then they're parallel. If they multiply to get -1, then they're perpendicular. So that's pretty much it. So you guys go through into the rest of these questions on your own. So that was it. I'll see you guys in the next video.